and gentlemen, welcome to this week's edition of the Wrestling Report. And here's your host, Rated R for Rasslin and Jonesy Chats Wrestling.
Welcome back to the Wrestling Report. We are live once again, as per usual. This is episode 16 of the Wrestling Report. I'm joined once again by my partner in crime, Jonesy from Jonesy Chats Wrestling. What's going on, Jonesy? How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Solid. Especially after the interesting week that just happened in professional wrestling, especially on the AEW side, post All Out. Now, that's our first topic, so we're gonna jump right into it. But first, just want to ask you, what you think of this week? Sans what happened at the scrum and everything what happened afterwards of the whole media scrum and all that going on. Other than that, what did you think of the week in professional wrestling?
I thought it's been quite an interesting week. There's a lot that's kind of gone down. WWE very much recovering after the massive pay-per-view last weekend. We're in a bit of a transition period again, but AEW, man, it's all been AEW this week. It's been absolutely crazy. All for the wrong reasons, unfortunately, but I'm sure we'll discuss. I'm looking forward to discussing it with you. And I just can't believe it's getting more and more crazy. I thought as weeks go by, I thought WWE would be more we talk about, but AEW are making all the headlines for the wrong reasons, unfortunately.
Exactly. I was gonna say the same thing. It seems to be for the wrong reasons. They're making the massive headlines and taking the spotlight from WWE. Numiko in the chat. Numiko, good morning, brother. Thank you for joining us. As per usual, Numiko is one of the mainstays on the Rated R for Rasslin channel and Wrestling Report live stream. So appreciate Numiko for joining us once again for another edition of the Wrestling Report. Numiko goes on to say, last week, everyone still can't talk about the incident instead of All Out show. Yeah, that's the thing. So it took a lot of steam from the pay-per-view and who came out at the pay-per-view. So let's get into it. The first topic is the AEW Madness. So obviously we're referring to CM Punk, the scrum, the media scrum, all that he said, all the terrible things he said about everybody, whether they're true or not. It's not the right place to air out your dirty laundry, as Michael Cole would say on Friday Night SmackDown in his commentary, talking about Ronda Rousey. So a little shot there from WWE towards AEW and CM Punk. But he says all this stuff. There's a brawl backstage. People get suspended. Titles are vacated. The trios titles are vacated from the Elite. The world title is vacated from CM Punk. And it took a lot of steam from the show. Mjf's return as the Joker. He becoming basically the number one contender at that point. He's not included in the tournament, which you're going to talk about later. But the AEW Madness, Jonesy, what are your thoughts and what are the insight you got for us for that?
My thoughts of it, total car crash. I think total disaster. Tony Khan had no control of the press conference. Really amateur. CM Punk, to be fair, went into business for himself, had the wrong attitude to start. I know he was injured, obviously, in the pay-per-view, but total mess, really. I can't believe it was allowed. Like, prime example, earlier this week on our channel, we had someone called Josh Hayes did a video with us, and he said a great point. He said that Roman Reigns in the WWE press conference wouldn't do this with Triple H there. So why the hell can CM Punk do it? I just think it really made AEW weak, took away all the hype for the pay-per-view. And Tony Khan should have cut the press conference, I think. I think it was just a joke, really. He allowed it to carry on. And you got to talk about the EVPs and all the other stuff. And no wonder it led to the punch-up after. Like, there's been so much bad atmosphere, bad mood and stuff like that. For a professional wrestling company in 2022, it's just really unforgivable, really. A company AEW size, this has just been probably one of the worst things I've seen, to be fair, in a long time.
Yeah, that's like indie stuff. That's stuff that you would get away with on the indies, especially with the boss, the owner of the promotion right there next to you. The fact that Tony Khan sat there, took that all in, took it and just, made a bunch of weird faces like he normally does. It's very interesting to see that guy would actually take it like that. I mean, it's something that Vince would never take. He would shut it down immediately. We've seen stuff like that, not similar, but stuff similar to that happen in WWE with Shawn Michaels, during his 98 run and previously before that. Comes to mind is the WrestleMania 14 press conference, the post press conference. He tried to hijack it at the end. He was upset, and Shane McMahon had to kind of throw him out. That was one of the things. There's certain things that have happened in WWE, but aren't as aired out as what we saw here. This was completely aired out in front of everybody. Now, I know Jonesy, you said to me you thought this was a work when it first started, but you thought Meltzer, Alvarez. I thought the same thing because you can't really trust professional wrestling. It seems there's always an angle somewhere. But it doesn't seem like it's a work now, so it seems like it's legit as legit can be.
I agree. I think the thing is, a prime example, the main focal point of CM Punk, besides tearing down everything related to Colt Cabana and the people that his enemies were putting over this muffin company, he's there to promote AEW. All that came out was about the muffins, really, and all this bakery company. Like, AEW paying him so much money for him to do that. It's just really unforgivable. I think for me, CM Punk, if it's up to me and Tony Khan get him out of the contract, I wouldn't bring him back, to be fair. Like, he's done exactly what we thought he may do in WWE, which is the reason why WWE turned him down. When we spoke last year, didn't we, about WWE turning him down for this this is that reason. I just thought it was totally unprofessional, really. I just think that obviously CM Punk had a game plan going into this press conference. He had it all worked out, and starting it by just trying to create a conflict is just not the best, really. I think it did nothing to AEW over as a promotion, and it just made them look like Tony Khan had no control. Tony Khan's just there like a lapdog nodding.
Yeah.
I felt really sorry for Tony Khan. I felt he was a bit out of his depth, but where do they go from here? That's the trouble. I think it's just really, really not good, to be honest.
It definitely isn't. Steve's in the chat. Steve, what's happening, gents? Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well, Steve. Appreciate you joining us, buddy. Craziness in AEW. I mean, Steve Nubenko, let me know what you think of CM Punk. What's your thoughts, honest thoughts on CM Punk? Is this CM Punk, Jonesy, just being CM Punk? Or does he have, I know the way he went about it is obviously the incorrect way about it, but is it just him, the way he is, he rubs everybody the wrong way, or he just gets into fights with a ton of people that he just has really no place right now in pro wrestling? Maybe as a commentary, member later on or something like that. But as an in-ring performer, does he really have no place just with the kind of guy that he tends to be and the issues he tends to be always involved in?
I mean, the trouble is he's getting more and more grouchy. The older he gets much more grouchier. And he's gone through, obviously being injured would have put him in a bad mood anyway, but he wasn't in the right frame of mind. He's not been particularly successful in AEW. Yes, he's held world titles. There was an initial buzz, but we've never really recreated that since he's been in. We're a year on now, and I feel like I don't need to see him again. I don't know whether that's just a CM Punk thing. For me, I think he just wants the money, much as everybody else. He wants the money there, but he's not willing to really convey to the company's idea, because really he should be there to elevate the younger stars.
Yes.
And he's not sort of seasoned as a professional enough to say, when Hammond Page dropped these one-liners before, rather than just let it go, CM Punk had that stored the whole time. And it's just, it's dangerous, really. You wouldn't see this sort of disorder in WWE. WWE have had moments like this before, but never to this point. It's only ever been sort of stuff like the Dynamite Kid and like Jax Rougeau falling out. Never sort of somebody falling out of Vince McMahon that's probably there. I guess you could say the Montreal Screwjob, but this isn't somebody at a press conference then throwing the company under the bus and feuding with everybody and the fracas that happened after, really.
Yeah, normally these things are saved for shoot interviews after they're out of the company. Normally that's when this stuff is saved for. You never normally see it on their actual. I mean, granted, it was on YouTube, but a lot of people tuned in. If they did it, they saw it afterwards.
They kept it on the YouTube all week. The press conference been up all week. It's not like they took it down straight away either, which is a bit unusual, really.
Exactly. Yeah, for them to keep it that long is unusual, especially the fact that the brawl went on. While I think it was Jericho's portion of the press conference is when the brawl started to begin, or it was happening, the breakup in the back. Now, so we got suspensions coming, or they have been handed out. Many individuals, I think Christopher Daniels, one of them, he got suspended. Ace Steel, obviously, CM Punk. Well, it's Ace Steel and CM Punk may be getting fired. We don't know. CM Punk recently just said he has an injury. He's going to be out extended a period of time. This could be a way just to write him off easily, or maybe he comes back and you kind of try to hope everybody forgets it, which they won't. But the elite's been suspended. So many suspensions being handed down. Obviously, the belts have been vacated. We're going to have new champions and all that. So no interim stuff. It's just interesting that he would let that go down and he wouldn't break it up. He wouldn't try to just, I mean, you got to credit CM Punk for being professional in ring, at least, because he didn't let this affect his in ring stuff. He didn't try to, shoot on anybody or do stuff like that. Not even promo stuff, really. It's just he waited. I don't know why he decided to drop all this on the scrum. Something that he could have just handled himself backstage. It's kind of one of those things. And then I've seen, people have been putting out that the segment with him and Triple H kind of calls him out, and everybody's saying was Triple H right all along. Seemingly was. I mean, he seemingly was right this whole time about CM Punk. I just don't know why he decided to do it when he did it. That's something you handle backstage. And if you fight people backstage and it comes out, it comes out. But at least you didn't air everything out beforehand and then get into a fight about it afterwards.
I think the thing with it as well is, let's look at it in a bigger picture. CM Punk's meant to be a babyface. He's just won the belt. It should be a big coronation, all this lot. All he's doing is whining. We don't really care about Colt Cabana sharing a bank account with his mum. How relevant is that? It's not relevant to AEW. And this feud with MGF, I felt everybody that came across was just amateur. Tony Khan, if it was me, I wouldn't do press conferences in future. If you can't control them, And for me, it looks like Tony Khan needs some sort of helping hand. He's had people such as JR in the company that have had really pivotal roles in WWE where they've had to sort of pacify people such as Stone Cold Steve Austin and make amends, if that makes sense. For me, I think Tony Khan needs some help from some of these more seasoned people to try and keep the locker room in track. But as you said, when you keep signing these checks and signing all these egos, if there's nobody nobody they've got to answer to, no wonder they're blowing up like they are do at the moment.
Well, that's the thing, right? The unsung hero is usually the head of talent relations. I mean, they do some messed up stuff at times, but they're the guys who take all the heat. They're the guys that everybody hates, everybody gets mad about. And that's actually there for a reason. It's kind of like a buffer to kind of just it's like an armored wall. It takes all the hits and it doesn't go down, and it's just there to take all the hits and deal out all the ugly, dirty news and tell people they're fired, tell people that they're being sent down or being whatever, taken off of TV, anything like that. That's what talent relations is all about. I don't think they have anybody that's like a head of talent relations over there in AEW that runs that same role that John Laurinaitis did, Jim Ross did.
They've got a few people. They've got Chris Daniels as a road agent. They've got a few other road agents. But yeah, the thing with it, I think the press conference is obviously one thing, but then when you go on to the next thing, which is the backstage attack and all this other stuff,
yeah,
that's where the full fall happened. There's obviously a lot of conjecture about what took place and stuff like that. I'm just surprised. Obviously, chairs and stuff got thrown in terms of what will happen. Ace Steel, I don't think they need to keep Ace Steel really for me. Like he's CM Punk's friend. CM Punk got him a job. CM Punk, like I wouldn't be scared to fire him if WWE probably aren't going to approach him with Triple H in charge. So firing him isn't really going to do anything. Although he's one of your ratings draws, you've tried him twice as world champion now, and both times he's got injured. That says it already for me. I think so. Sorry, after you've gone.
So we're saying the injury thing is real. His new injury is real.
It's legit, yeah. He's torn his pectoral, same injury as Cody Rhodes. So he'll be out for potentially 8 months if they do decide to bring him back. If they do bring him back, I don't know how you're going to make amends with the rest of the locker room. Perhaps you put him in a room and say, this is it. Any more of this, you're going to be fired, etc., etc. He comes back, he has to be a heel now. He has to play on this. He has to go down the route of fans aren't going to cheer him. It wouldn't surprise me if they can somehow pacify us if Tony Khan does try and make some money out of this and turn this into some sort of angle down the line. But it's a fiery inferno at the moment. I don't know how really he's going to pacify it. The fact that he's had to strip his trios champions as well, that looked really stupid. And someone made a really good point to me earlier in the week that if you didn't know about all this backstage stuff, say you just watch AEW pay-per-views, you didn't see the press conference, you don't follow the internet at all, you'd have no idea why CM Punk and Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks have been stripped. They didn't say anything on TV to acknowledge it, didn't even try and cover for it, which I think that was a mixed move from AEW. I understand why I did it, but it was a bit of a hole, really.
Yeah. So like you're right. If you didn't watch any of that stuff or you're not keeping up with any of the stuff outside the ring, then you wouldn't know any of this happened. Because again, it was a YouTube media scrum. That's where it was shown on YouTube. That's where you saw it on the AEW YouTube channel, and a couple other people that were there, journalists, put it up on their channels as well. This is the only way you heard about it, saw about it. So that's the whole thing. I have a video. Check it out. It's up there. Has Tony Khan lost control? Obviously has. A lot of people are saying that he never had control to begin with. Now, this is an interesting topic, and I want to get your thoughts on it, Jonesy. The guy is obviously like a massive mark for a lot of the guys he signed, right? Correct. I mean, you've seen the way he hugs Claudio Castagnoli Cesaro. I mean, he's obviously a massive, huge fan of these guys. So has that hurt him in the long run? And has that actually caused him to put certain individuals in spots that they probably shouldn't have been in terms of the corporate structure and the way the business is actually set up for AEW?
I agree with what you said. I think the thing is, obviously he's a massive fan. Hugging wrestlers, all this other stuff, fine. Trouble is, he's obviously led, isn't he? The thing is, he's going by what the fans want. He can't go out and get the Roman Reigns of this world because under contract. So these players, people that are released by WWE or leave WWE, are his best bets. But he's continually pushing the wrong people. The only good thing really to come out of AEW, I would say, that's an organic talent that you could say. There's a couple. There's Hangman Adam Page. There's MGF. They're the only two things really to come out. I would say that he's built himself. And I think the thing with it is it's just one of the things. Once you've got this authority, the thing with CM Punk, he obviously seems in awe of CM Punk because of what he's done. I got to admit, when AEW signed CM Punk, I was really excited. I thought, wow, this is CM Punk's big return. But within a year, I just think it's just another wrestler on the card. Unfortunately, you're paying him a load of money. And for the money you're paying him, he should be throwing the company under the bus. His first priority should be getting that world title over to the masses and building up that feud for MGF. Yes, he was injured. That match might not have happened, but going on about Colt Cabana and muffins and the EVPs, all the other stuff, it's just absolutely comical. When you're asking, like, first question was Nick Hausman of Wrestling Inc. Are you friends with Colt Cabana? You know what I mean? That you've just come off a pay-per-view win. It should be, this was a struggle. I finally
Yeah.
did it. I got my revenge from losing the other week on Dynamite. You know what I mean? It's CM Punk's always been a fantastic talker, but doing real life pipe bombs, they've got no value to AEW as a brand growing. I think it really sort of just looks amateur, doesn't it? It made it look like a shoot interview. It's almost like they forgot to turn the camera off. That's the way I kind of felt.
Exactly, and it makes him look like obviously he doesn't have any control, and he's like the fact that he sat there, like I said again, he sat there next to him, let him ran off all this stuff about executive vice presidents, even though they're EVPs by title only, basically, but all that, and he just let it go down. So it makes him look very Bush League in terms of the management structure and going on there. But again, you said listening to the fans. You can't always listen to the fans for absolutely everything, because a lot of times they don't even know what they want, because you'll get something, they may not like it when you give it to them, and they may like something that they didn't think they would like. So you can't always listen to them. So that's why he's running that fine line of like choosing what to do and also listening to the fans at the same time. That's something that people have hated about WWE. Is like, you don't listen to the fans, but they can't always listen to the fans. They have to kind of ride that line. Do we not? Do we make it our own thing, or do we kind of hear what they're saying and go with it? Stuff like that. It's that fine line they run.
It is a fine line. It's just what they do with this. The thing with it, though, there was nothing stopping it. Mark my words, if this is Roman Reigns at the Clash of the Castle and he's doing this whole sort of Drew McIntyre's crap, WWE's a joke, these fans are a joke, we've ripped them off, etc., etc., Triple H would have stood up and ended the press conference. The differences between AEW and WWE, the WWE press conferences are all scripted. They're not scripted, but they've vet the questions.
Yes.
And then obviously they know who's in there. Everyone's in character. Seth Rollins obviously wasn't slightly in character, but that's the difference. It's just a total different class. And I think for me, AEW, yes, it wants to be a bit organic, wants to be a bit ECW-like, doesn't want to be like the mainstream like WWE, but really, really bad. You want to pick your people for the press conference, Dan. You want to put people that got thrown under the bus. And I just, as I said, this first time, really, I felt sorry for Tony Khan. He was just there, and I almost felt like he was helpless. It was almost like he was too scared to speak. Even when he went and got one of CM Punk's drinks, he was almost like begging CM Punk, "Can I have a can of a drink, please?"
Yeah, and afterwards he was like, "Oh, he's a sweetheart. He's a sweetheart." After he just shit on the entire company.
You got to give him some sort of. I do feel sorry for him, but obviously that's going on. Then you've got sort of Chris Jericho later saying shit's going down.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And he's then having to continue the press conference. It's and when you got people like Chris Daniels that are meant to be road agents and stuff like that getting involved, it's just just a shambles, really, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's something. Yeah, you got to vet the question. I think you got to vet your questions for talent and employees. But when you're the guy who's the head of the company, then the question shouldn't be vetted. You should be kind of answering them as you never heard them before for the first time. Vetted for talent, because you don't want talent to go off the rails like that would happen. Why bring up Colt Cabana? Why? That's a touchy subject. It's a real thing. Litigation, all that stuff like that. Nubico says what Punk did in the media scrum is unnecessary. He shouldn't air the laundry, the dirty laundry in public like that. He should have just talked about it after the press conference instead. Yes, he should have went to Tony Khan or the Elite straight up, because he told him, he said, if you guys had a problem with me, Hangman, the Elite, you come up to me and you tell it to me. So he should have done the same thing to them. Walk up to them and be like, look, are you guys saying this? If you are, shut your damn mouth, basically. I mean, the guy didn't have much success in the UFC, but he is a trained combat martial artist to some degree. So, I mean, you got to have some balls to kind of go up to him and kind of, step up to him. So if he didn't think they had the balls to it, he should have done it himself rather than airing it out like he did. And completely, the guy that's paying your paycheck, you completely just torched him, and you had him sit there and just take it. That's nuts. I don't think he could ever come back. If he does, then there has to be serious money to be made in order for him to come back. SCW says so many experienced heads around Tony Khan, this stuff should have never happened. Correct.
It shouldn't. It's naivety though from Tony Khan. Like Tony Khan obviously has done a few pay-per-views, he's had these press conferences, and they're meant to be really feel good, but he's got a really good sort of relationship with Dave Meltzer, Brian Alvarez. They've got a real good relationship going on there, where clearly the Figure 4 Wrestling Observer putting over AEW all the time above WWE. I just felt that really for me, it just shows, yes, if you're going to make money out of this, it would have been nice to do something like this if you could have got some sort of shoot angle. But another great point that happened on our podcast this week, which I'm going to mention, is all this backstage fighting, if it is an angle, none of it was on camera. So,
yes.
There's no value at all to AEW. Even if you're going to turn this into money, I just felt what does that say to the rest of the locker room? You can do what you want. There's no consequence. And just really, really disappointing. I think the thing with it, we all like controversy. We all like a bit of something a bit unusual. But
the fact drama, we love the drama. Yeah,
it was almost to the point where you just think, how ridiculous is this? And where does CM Punk go next? I think the thing with this with AEW, give Tony Khan his due. He did the best he can with Dynamite this week, but I'm just surprised the amount of people they've got in that promotion, particularly wrestlers that have really experienced, that have been to WWE, been to Japan, done all this other stuff. EVPs really should have stepped in a little bit rather than had punch ups and all this other stuff. They should have really all got together, and this should have all been hashed out beforehand. Really.
It should have. It should have. I mean, that stuff you talk behind closed doors, men to men, woman to woman. You air it out in private, and you work on it from there. If you guys brawl, you fight, it is what it is. But as long as it wasn't private, I mean, even in wrestling, stuff comes out all the time because everybody's leaking stuff back and forth. SCW says media scrum in general felt very unprofessional, even with Keith Lee and Swerve questioning. Everyone basically saying to Tony why he didn't change decision to have Acclaimed win the tag titles. That's an interesting point right there. Because if you watched All Out, you saw that the Acclaim was mega over compared to Swerve in Our Glory. And it felt like even if they wasn't supposed to win, they should have called maybe an audible and had the Acclaim win for the pop itself. And the fact, I guess, because you're going to turn Swerve in Our Glory heel and eventually break them up, maybe that's why you went with them holding on to the titles. But the Acclaim were mega over. And it's one of those decisions. It's tough to make. Do you switch? Do you not? Did they expect that much of a reaction difference between the Acclaim and Swerve in Our Glory? It's a tough call. And is it a call you make in the ring? Like, relay down to the referee. We're going to change the finish. Acclaim, they're going over. Figure it out. Kind of figure out the finish at that point.
It depends on where they want to go long-term storyline. The thing is, they obviously want to rematch out of this, which is Grand Slam. They're going to do in a few weeks. Maybe that's what they wanted to get a rating out of that potentially. But title change should have happened. For me, Keith Lee in AEW has been a total disaster. Sorry to say it. This guy was fantastic in NXT, treated like a total joke in WWE. He's just another wrestler again, another one which I've signed on a huge hype, huge potential. All this lot that. He's just lost in this tag team. And Swerve Strickland's another one that's really, really good as well. Both of these two are far too good to be tag teams. But we'll see what the Acclaim do. I think Acclaim definitely should be the next AEW tag team champions. They're clearly over. And they are much more suited to being a tag team with the tag team titles than Swerve and Keith Lee, in my opinion.
Definitely are. Now, with Malachi Black, this is part of the Aew Madness. Malachi Black requested his release. He was granted it. It said after the match was over between House of Black, Darby, Sting, and Miro that, he hugged everybody in House of Black. He bowed out. So that, obviously confirming that he's leaving the company. Is he coming back WWE? And is Keith Lee one of those guys, maybe Swerve Scott, maybe a couple others that may eventually ask for the release? Miro, I think it's time he should have asked for. He's not even in the tournament for the championship title. He has been fumbled over and over again since losing that TNT championship. Who do you see and who do you think maybe guys coming out of this disaster that was this press conference saying that they want to leave the company?
I think the problem you've got is obviously if it's mental health, respect mental health and stuff like this. Tony Khan's very, very clever with letting him go. He's put something in this contract so he can't go there, I suppose, with 6 to 8 months, which is kind of sensible. And it's just a shame, really. I think it's a real loss to the House of Black stable. But all due respect, Malachi's got to do what he's got to do. I hope whatever mental health issues going on are fixed. But it's just down. Maybe if releases are given easily, then more people do that. But there's non-compete clauses, all this other lot. AEW have got a lot of people that are whose contracts are due to come up soon. So they really need to start signing some other wrestlers to replace them if they're going to do that. But it's just down to what they'll do. I think it's good at Tony Khan having that humane side of letting him go. But we'll see where it goes. But to me, the back of my mind, I'm thinking he'll end up with Triple H again. Triple H was a massive fan of him. Yes. We haven't seen a true Aleister Black in WWE since NXT. You could do some fantastic work with him. This rebirth of wrestlers that he signed, particularly they seem to have a long-term plan with a lot of them. It could be some great television. I think Aleister Black could be a fantastic addition to WWE.
And not only that, is his wife is also there as well as Lena Vega. So that may help him in general, being closer to his wife. But also you see Triple H kind of going down that road where we're going back to what worked in NXT, and we'll work with these individual characters, what they use, what gimmicks they had, the way they were presented that got them over originally. We're going back to that. And we're going to touch on that a little bit later. But in that same vein of people leaving, there's a rumor Young Bucks sending feelers out to WWE about maybe making the jump. Is there any truth to this? Is this just a ridiculous story that everybody's talking about that probably has no chance of happening whatsoever?
Yeah, it's not happening this year. So put it out there. So Young Bucks, it's all a storyline. Apparently the derivative was from Dave Meltzer. Dave Meltzer's denied it today, so it's obviously probably not happening. Their contracts are up at the end of 2023. That could be at a time when they do go. But yeah, I can't see him going, unfortunately. The feeders may be out for a lot of people, but yeah, I don't see it. Potentially long term, it's just down to the status of the company, really. The thing is, the more wrestlers WWE sign from AEW, that's less spots to promote the people you've got internally. And I think Young Bucks would be a fantastic addition if they did that. That could be one tag team that finally may beat the Usos, which we can call out for. But yeah, it's not happening this year, mate. End of 2023 if it does.
Yeah, I think they eventually will at some point in their career, because I think there's always going to be that, we made it everywhere else. Let's see if we can make it there, go there, and show them what we're made out of, and show them that they should have had us there from the beginning or something. That ego that comes in and that chip on your shoulder kind of thing. And they probably want those dream matches. They probably want that put on their resume and stuff like that. Just as at this point where they're at in their careers, they just want to do stuff that they will have fun doing. So I could see them being like, I want to have some fun. I want to go and take on the Usos. I want to take on the New Day. I want to take on these guys that we're probably never going to wrestle until they're old. Let's go and do it, and let's go blow the roof off a WrestleMania type thing. That's to me what feels like what they've done so much in their career. That's really the only thing on their bucket list left, is probably just like, you know what? Let's go over there and show them what we got. Show them that this is us. This is what we got. This is what we bring to the table. This is what we've always brought to the table type of thing. It's a pride factor that goes into there. So I think eventually it will happen. I just don't think it's going to happen anytime super soon. Maybe the next 5 years or so. Maybe we could see them show up and kind of make a big splash in a short, condensed run. It could be like when, old tag team showed up in WWF, like, the Rock and Roll Express. They were there for like a cup of coffee, real short time. So just like that, maybe we could see something like that. It wasn't that memorable, but maybe with the Bucks, it will be.
Yeah, maybe. I think the thing with it, it'll be interesting to see what role Cody Rhodes plays, because he's got close connections to them as well. And obviously AEW are dealing with this lawsuit for WWE or vice versa, where they've been trying to tap this talent out. It makes it interesting. People jumping ship. I think it can make it a bit like the old Monday Night Wars a little bit if we don't know who's turning up. But I trust Triple H though to put these people right. I think if they do come in on big contracts, they're not going to be like in 24/7 division, are they? They're going to be really treated well. But Young Bucks will be a good one, and yeah, I'd really like to see them against the Usos. Really, for me, that would be a team that can come in at day one, and you've got a team if they come in as sort of as over as they are at the moment, easy could compete with the Usos, and that'd be a fantastic match for us all to watch. To be honest.
Yeah, it definitely will be. It's a dream match everybody's wanting to see. Eric in the chat, wife made me go to church, but wrestling is my church. Good morning. Sorry I'm late. Yes, you are late, but yes, that is true. Wrestling is our church. As we love wrestling, we always talk about wrestling. There it is. SCW Steve, it's great for leverage when negotiating a new contract, like MJF says on TV. It's a bidding war. It is. It's a bidding war. He referenced it, the bidding war of 2024. This plays a part into it. This came at a bad time. It's like politics. Before you come into the election, when something drops before that October surprise, before November, this is kind of that similar kind of feeling. It's a little bit early, but this is the kind of stuff that shows talent. Like, maybe this isn't the place for me. 2024 is right around the corner. Boom, I'm out type of thing. This does play a factor into that.
I think it does. I think definitely the thing with Mjf, clearly this week on TV, he's been going on about the game and all these people and Cody and all this other stuff. I think for me, he's the one though, really. Like, it's really strange and really risque thing Tony Khan's doing, particularly if he must have confidence that MJF's going to stay, to be dropping these lines and hints of WWE, if that makes sense.
Big time. Dan, my guy Dan is in the chat. Thank you for joining us, Dan. Always appreciate it. Aspiring wrestler Dan is. Make sure you check him out on all his socials and everything like that. Buck should go to WWE, the Elite versus the... I mean, that's like dream match of dream matches right there. Kenny with Roman, the Bucks with the Usos. Maybe bring somebody else, Hangman, to take on Solo. And then, somebody else to take on... who's the camera guy they have? What's his name again? The camera guy with the spray.
Brandon Cutler
versus Sami Zayn. There you go. Yeah, everybody's booked right there. The Elite versus the Bloodline, and I think that'll be awesome.
I think the thing with it as well, it is $1 million thing. And I think the thing with this is just one of the things you can kind of dream to see. Never say never. It'll be the closest thing we've had since the Radicals jumping ship from WWE. Yes. So it'll be that impact if they did it.
Well, we've seen that meme where it's like the Radicals, picture of the Radicals, and then it says, Kenny and the Bucks and stuff like that. So it could happen. I mean, it's a pipe dream at this point, but it could happen if things continue to go south as they appear in the AEW. Eric says Young Bucks don't look like Vince type guys, but now that Trips is in charge, sounds like good times. Definitely does. Fits the mold of an NXT guy that was brought in through NXT with Triple H at the helm. It fits, as long as the Bucks don't have a run like the Dudleys had last time. Yes, the Dudleys' last run was obviously to put every other tag team over, get guys over, be that veteran presence, and show guys certain things that they didn't know, and stuff like that. And obviously it was just a way for Devon to get into the office, work corporate. Yeah. All right. So Aew Madness, Young Bucks, WWE. The next thing we're going to cover right here is Mgf Return, right? It was squandered, and the championship tournament. Now, Mgf Returns at AEW. Now, is he with Stokely and the rest of that odd parent, group of guys? Is he with them? Is he the leader of that group? What's the story with that?
He paid them off. That's it. It's
He
dropped.
just paid him
It's
off.
dropped.
Okay.
As far as I can tell, everything I've looked into this week
That's pretty
says
cheap,
that
to be honest with you.
he pretty much paid them off to get that.
Yeah.
They've not really. If you notice, he didn't even acknowledge Stokely on TV this week.
Yeah.
And yeah, for me, it was great to see MGF back. We predicted many weeks we've been saying MGF was back at the pay-per-view. I really, really was happy to see him back. I love the reveal at the end as well, but it just doesn't kind of make sense. You've got him there with the dancing, the different music, and then he comes back this week, and there's no real correlation with that, if that makes sense. There was no same theme music. The whole thing with the devil, this lot, it's just very, very much like, I don't really get why he comes in as a Joker. He's got his theme, he's teasing, he's not going to take his mask off, but yet they do the reveal at the end of the night. You know what I mean? If you're not going to take your mask off, why not build it up for a couple of weeks? And you could have done a big thing where MJF's in the ring or somebody's in the ring. MJF comes out, everyone thinks MJF's going to do the save. You go, it was me, etc., which would have been far better, really.
Yeah, I think that's cheap that he just paid those guys off, because not only is the grouping extremely random because the individuals that are in the group are just random, but he pays them off. That's just super cheap because there's no payoff from that. It's just like, oh yeah, I paid him off, whatever. Okay, that's it. You know what I mean? So it doesn't make it's like when he brought in W Morrissey the first time. You know, he paid him like, oh, you want to make a payday to take on whoever it was that he was taking on. He had him come out. I think it was to take on Wardlow. So he had him do that. So it's cheap. It's cheap. It's there's not payoff to it. It's not really interesting. Kind of is what it is. The mask thing, yeah. The reveal was good. I like when he used the same clip of CM
clip
Punk
was awesome.
ROH.
He still other stuff with the chip on the same night. Like if he just had that at the end of the show, that clip, that would be fine. But the fact you've got the Joker there, he comes out, the music, the dancing. I'm going to take the mask off. I'm not. And then you obviously teasing the baby face thing at the end a little bit. But last time we obviously saw MGF, obviously had the shoot promo on AEW. And now Tony Khan's begging him to come back. It's kind of jumping a bit for me. It's not really doesn't really make a lot of sense, but fantastic to see him back. Really good addition for them. And for me, this guy, they have to give him the world title as soon as possible, really. Like, no more stalling, no more giving the belt to Moxley. MGF really should be the next world champion at all costs as soon as possible, really.
He really should. And the fact that he's not in the tournament, so we're coming to the tournament. It's going to end at Grand Slam in Arthur Ashe Stadium in Queens, New York, right? The big AEW Dynamite Grand Slam show in 2 weeks. He's not in it. Miro's not in it either. We have Chris Jericho and Jon Moxley getting the buys. We had Darby Allin versus Sammy Guevara. Interesting that they put Sammy Guevara in there. He wins, so he's going to take on Moxley. You have Hangman Adam Page versus Bryan Danielson. Danielson wins. He's going to take on Jericho. So it kind of seems like we're set up for kind of like maybe Mox versus Danielson. And I think Danielson's probably, if it wasn't MJF, I think Danielson might have been the safest bet to be AEW World Champion because he doesn't bring a lot of baggage with him. He's very, by the books. He's there. He's reliable. He's gonna get the job done, and he's a solid guy to have as your top guy, your champion in a time of turmoil. I think because you have so much going on with the media scrum guys getting suspended and everything like that, and the issues with CM Punk and the Elite. You get a guy who's stable as your champion. I think it's probably the best way to go about it because you have so much turmoil going on around you that you gotta have somebody stable there as champion.
You've got to have someone stable. The thing is, if we look at the brackets and stuff like that, so clearly we're going to have Chris Jericho and Bryan Danielson this week. For me, it'd be great to see Bryan Danielson get that win. Bryan Danielson hasn't really connected. It's not really been sort of the main event we knew he was coming from a main event of WrestleMania, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you're going to have the Blackpool Combat Club against each other. Bryan Danielson, John Moxley in the final. So that's obviously a rematch of Revolution, which was superb. For me, I think that your winner probably in this one, as much as I want Bryan Danielson to get it, I think John Moxley will win this. They've got one or two ways. Either MJF then cashes in that night straight away, or they do the whole MJF chasing. Which is probably the route they go down. But John Moxley, for me, probably is the winner of this tournament, I think. As much as I'd like to see Bryan Danielson something new. Either way, a Bryan Danielson Mgf feud would be great. Either one of them matches would be great. And I think the whole thing of MJF chasing could be kind of interesting to see, really.
It could. Now, John Moxley, it's another safe bet, but he just came off of it, so it feels like it makes All Out feel even more like pointless because if he lost the title, first off, the whole issue with obviously him beating Punk quickly and then having the rematch like immediately after didn't make sense to begin with. Jim Ross came out and said the same thing. So we have that. Then you have the whole thing that went down afterwards. So the pay-per-view already feels like a wash because of what transpired afterwards. The Mgf return doesn't mean as much. The title change doesn't mean as much, obviously. And then you're going to give it back to the person who was involved in that. It's just, I think, to me, Danielson's got to be the guy. It's either got to be Jericho or Danielson, but more Danielson because he seems just more like stable. Like he's just a guy who's not going to ruffle any feathers. He's going to be there, fighting champion, very babyface, white meat as hell. It's just going to be there, I think. And maybe it creates a rift between him and Moxley. I don't know. We'll see. Or maybe it's just him and Moxley in the final. It's a nice shake your hand kind of respect finish. Blackpool Combat Club members going at each other, and it's very respectful. I think they got to really toe the line here because can they go even more controversial storylines after what the real controversy that just happened? That's going to be interesting. Do they want to push more into that realism controversy thing? Stuff like that. That's going to be interesting, kind of line they toe.
It depends what the barrier is now. It depends on what they want to do and stuff like this. The thing is, it depends how long the suspension is for people such as Kenny Omega, Young Bucks, and obviously the others. But for me, I think the tournament's a good idea. It's sensible. I just don't want to see John Moxley win it again. I'm done with John Moxley. He's had the belt numerous times now. Bryan Danielson, something new, something fresh. I'd be interested to see what they play off. Maybe this is a way to get him out of Blackpool Combat Club potentially. He goes on his own, and then you've got MGF, or you do the unthinkable. You've got MGF playing the numbers game against sort of the Blackpool Combat Club, and MGF is then the babyface. They then turn heel. It's something they can do, but let's see where they go with this. I think it's a great way. Either if any one of them three win it, they're going to be credible champions. The matches are going to be good anyway. Either way.
Yeah, it's going to be all solid stuff. Steve in the chat, will you be going to Arthur Ashe Stadium show? It's the day before my birthday, right? So I was thinking about going, but where I live in New Jersey compared to where Queens is, I'm a big Mets fan. So this stadium is right next to the Mets stadium. So I go to Met game a lot. During the week, it's a pain to get out there. It really is a pain to get out into Queens, that deep into where the Mets play, and go to that stadium. I really want to go because I was gonna go last year, but didn't have a chance to for personal reasons. But I do want to go this year, especially with a new champion going to be crowned. Maybe a big surprise that show as well. I'm thinking about it. I really am, but it's a pain to get out there in the middle of the week out to Queens at that time. So I want to see what happens, but I'll keep you guys updated if I do go. Martin, what's up, Jonesy Rated R? So did the AEW book themselves again against the corner with having MJF still as a heel?
That was an audible though. So with MJF, he was meant to come back as a babyface. I think largely a babyface, but because of CM Punk obviously got injured and they can't do that CM Punk versus MGF feud, which is what the natural route was going to be. MJF obviously has had to turn heel. They were doing a bit of that tease on the other night of him as a babyface. See the crowd reaction initially, but they have to go downhill now because ultimately they haven't got that heel available. If they want a heel sort of challenging John Moxley, Bryan Danielson, it's probably the route they're going to go down. I think MJF as a face would have been interesting to see. It's quite good, but it will get more over if he's against the authority, which is the route I thought they were going to go down originally. Austin versus Vince, that type of route with MJF as Austin is the route I thought they'd go down. But for me, I think MJF is a heel. He does his best work. I'm never going to complain about MJF being a heel. And honestly, he's fantastic.
Yeah, you can. I think he's like a Ric Flair-esque where he's a tremendous heel and can always be a heel. But if he ever turns babyface, I think it's going to be very lackluster, disappointing, similar to Flair's runs as babyfaces in the past. He just doesn't really fit the mold. It's just not in his DNA. But CM Punk did mess everything up, which Danny referenced here. Punk really effed everything up, and I feel it was so unprofessional for him by him. So it was. He really screwed up a lot of things, whether he did it on purpose or not, or it was just kind of the spur of the moment thing that things get to you. You're coming off the high of winning the title. It's the only guy I've ever seen who won the title and was that pissed off after winning the championship. I mean, it's remarkable.
It's injuries. So he was injured again. He must have that frustration in the back of his mind, but. So even go in, like he probably didn't know the extent of his injury at that point, if that makes sense, to go in and then just, as you said earlier, throw the company under the bus, put over the muffins rather than the world title. It's pretty unforgivable, isn't it? Let's be fair.
It really is. My guy Mex is in the chat, WrestleManiac UK. Make sure you check out WrestleManiac UK's YouTube channel. Also, his Instagram is tremendous. Make sure you check out his Instagram. Danielson must win this title, reset AEW, and bring the love back. Yeah, I think he's the safest bet. He's stable. He will bring order kind of to everything right now and kind of calm everything down. I think him as the champion, and I think it's really the only way to go. But we'll see. I mean, AEW has done some interesting things. Martin goes on to say the AEW world title has been on unstable since Hangman lost title back at Double or Nothing.
I think the thing with that, to be fair, to give some sort of defense to AEW, they wanted Punk to have long-term reign. So Punk getting injured all the time has stopped that. They wanted Punk to be a bit like a Roman Reigns, not losing for 6 or 7 months, if that makes sense. But they've never really been able to sort of get that started because he keeps getting injured, unfortunately.
Exactly. Yeah. SCW goes on to say, unless he has signed a contract extension, Mox has been working on a handshake agreement with AEW that will be up shortly. I mean, that's interesting. It is interesting. Could we see him kind of decide just to leave after what happened? Is he tired of AEW? What do you think?
You never know. The thing is, if he's on this handshake agreement, what I think Tony Khan's crazy putting the world title on him at any point. That's nothing I question that. The source of that is a really good source. It's Tom Colohue, and he's really, really good. Interesting if they're doing that. I think really risky from Tony Khan to push John Moxley the way they have been, and then him leaving it anyway. Does this makes you wonder really whether WWE would then reach out to John Moxley to try and get him back? Because that's an unfinished story. Now Vince has gone. John Moxley can do kind of what he wants under Triple H. The PG thing kind of stops that a little bit, but him back to WWE could be some really good television. And I think that's something that him and Roman Reigns is a program that I think that would work straight away from the get-go. It's something that's huge. It's the first match you could bring him back. And I think that would be something that could be a WrestleMania match if they were given, if that's the route they wanted to go down. But
the interesting thing, if he goes back to WWE, is he Dean Ambrose? I know he's gonna have the name Dean Ambrose, and I keep the name John Moxley because that's trademarked. Dean Ambrose is. So does he go back to that lunatic fringe? I don't think so, right? I think he's gonna have to bring it.
It'll be more like the AEW style we've got, and it wouldn't surprise me if he does go in as a John Moxley. Like, although he could say he was previously Dean Ambrose, he could just do a promo. I denounce Dean Ambrose. I'm not Dean Ambrose. I'm John Moxley. Week 1, you know what I mean? They could do that, but it depends. I think the film with it now Triple H is giving everyone their first name back this week. Obviously, Austin Theory got his first name back. He's got to go in as John Moxley. Really, I think Dean Ambrose is okay, but his best work is John Moxley.
That is true. It could be like how when Johnny Nitro turned into John Morrison, they did it on TV and they referenced it. So it could be something like that. We could see go. Eric says Punk should have never been at the media scrum. That's something that you have to see when you talk to a person. You can tell if they're ornery or not. And, you could tell CM Punk was probably in a bad mood and maybe wasn't the right
You could tell
choice.
that last weekend from me. I post pay-per-view press conference last week because I was so tired. It wasn't really me. But no, definitely you could tell he's just frustrated. And it's a shame this wasn't sort of around, everyone was in a room and they were hashing out the differences. But as I said, the aftermath and all the attack and that lot, it's just really, really kind of worrying. I think you hear different stuff. Obviously, it was it was CM Punk and there was the other guy and then his wife was in the room. If they're protecting the woman, I can kind of understand that. But there's so much conjecture with what's going on and stuff. And the fact that everyone's suspended, nobody's been fired yet. To me, that kind of indicates that they're probably not going to get fired. I don't think CM Punk would be fired. I think it would have happened if it was already.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they wouldn't have been like, oh, he's out with injury or something like that. I think they would have done it on the spot, like right then, quietly fired him. Dan goes on to say, would Mox go back to WWE when he's always guaranteed a top spot in AEW? I think the same goes to WWE. I think he's guaranteed a top spot over there too.
I think it's the money. Like, who's going to pay more? Who's going to put zeros on the contract? Creative control comes into it. And WWE WrestleMania is a far bigger vehicle than AEW. I'm sorry, any WWE, particularly under Triple H, they're still getting the most ratings in wrestling at the moment. And AEW have hit that brick wall where they've not really kind of advanced. If that makes sense, they've had that buzz. They've had these odd shows where they've got good ratings, and AEW is still number 2 to WWE. They're just sort of, it's kind of, the gap hasn't gone down. It's kind of the same as it was when they first started almost.
And I think the gap is always going to be there until something massive happens, which hasn't happened yet. SCW says, same source. WWE want John Moxley as he is now.
Would make sense, to be fair. Dean Ambrose is very PG. The Shield is something you don't want to go down. So yeah, I think the way he is at the moment, he's natural. His promos are as natural as he is as a character. It fits him, and it wouldn't surprise me one day if he goes back. There was a story I heard. I think this was earlier this year. I don't know if I told you this story actually. That WWE did try and do a deal with AEW where they got John Moxley back for one show. They tried to get Jericho back for the Royal Rumble because they obviously did the Jericho thing on the WWE Network. Do you remember that interview with Stone Cold and Jericho?
Yes.
They were trying to do some sort of deal where John Moxley came back for just the Rumble. But then obviously Tony Khan fell out because WWE and AEW got some bad friction at the moment. Obviously because of particularly a lot of it's down to stuff like putting pay-per-views on the same day as an AEW show.
Yes,
he was really upset about that one. They were trying to get on with each other, but it was something that was talked about, but they didn't actually do it, which kind of makes sense really. You don't want to put John Moxley on WWE if you're going to potentially. You want him to have the buy rates on his programming, if that makes sense, rather than WWE.
Yeah, I mean, Tony Khan was really upset about that. You saw in the press conference, he also, he said he was really upset about the Jim Crockett treatment that he got from WWE this past weekend. I don't really compare the two. I think what they did Jim Crockett was a lot worse than what they did to Tony Khan. They ran stuff like at the same exact time as he was running. So, I mean, what are you going to do? Martin says, is CM Punk the biggest investment lost of AEW, at this time?
I think so. He's injured. He can't wrestle. He's fantastic. You may have got the merch. The hype that was there when he came in was fantastic. Originally, when he came in, I really thought this is one of the guys that was the biggest free agent available in wrestling. And when he signed for AEW, obviously it was exciting times. But the fact that WWE passed on him And Fox were going to pay the wages for him. Let's not forget that Fox said they would pay the contract. WWE said we don't want him because he's drama. For me, for him to go just to another wrestler on the roster, he's lost a lot of the buzz. It's not like a legend coming back and you're getting that buzz. Like Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania this year. Look at the excitement. Look at the buzz. You know what I mean? CM Punk does a pay-per-view now. It's just another wrestler, unfortunately.
It really is just another match on the storyline on the show. It's not big spotlight type thing. Martin says, in the long run, was another tournament for the world title the best idea they could have done?
It's not a lazy idea. It's something to do to get
last minute, right?
To get interest in that show, like Arthur Ashe. Really, the fact that they're scrubbing around, obviously, people getting suspended the day of the show, people getting sent home. Give Tony Khan the best he could do with it. He done the best he can with it. I think it was probably the best option, really, other than giving Mjf the belt straight away or doing a Danielson Mgf fight, like as a one-off match, if that makes sense. It gives longevity. And changing champions all the time. I think the bigger frustration really was a trio title for me. Like, they spent all this effort putting the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega over, and you've had such great teams as Aussie Open and Will Ospreay there that have been incredible. I don't know why Tony Khan isn't doing all he can to get these guys back. These are the guys you need to be getting back. They may have Japanese New Japan bookings and stuff like that, but whatever it costs, whatever the zeros are, get these guys signed for me. These guys were credible. They were fantastic. They did by far the best matches in the tournament. And these would have probably been the ones you should have picked to take the title, unless the bookings they have already stopped that maybe in advance.
Yeah, and so Death Triangle is your new trio of champions. The match was just best friends versus Death Triangle. That was it. That's what we got. So I mean, the problem is they just came off a tournament, so there's only so much you can do following that. After the tournament finals were just on Sunday,
it's rotten luck.
And this happens. Yeah, it's bad luck, and it's short notice. So they're basically the tournament for the title is just a way for them to kind of reset themselves creatively and give themselves 2 to 3 weeks of content with their top guys, so they don't have to like rush to figure out storylines. I guess at this point, they'll give them 3 weeks of leeway where they can kind of just reset and figure out what they're going to do next.
I'll tell you what the long-term plan of the tournament was, in my opinion. My long-term opinion, is before Bobby Fish got released, the dream scenario for them was the Undisputed Era versus the Elite for the trios.
Of course,
that's the whole reason this tournament was going to come about and stuff like this. But obviously, people getting released, people getting injured. It's a shame, really. I think it's a massive waste of Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, though, in the trios tournament. They're just Kenny Omega, for me, you had this big return, former world champion, one of the most highly rated wrestlers in the world. And you're putting him in this mid-table tournament, like a mid-table sort of title. You know what I mean? Not the best, to be fair, mate.
It's not, but that's definitely the dream scenario for them. Would have been, these guys, Cole and Red Dragon versus the Elite, but it just didn't work out. It's bad. They've been running into a bit of bad luck recently, so you got to, AEW has had some bad luck. Martin goes, going to say, wouldn't any talent at this time would like to see both options from AEW and WWE when their contracts expire? Yeah, because they weigh both options, they're able to get more. So like, they're giving me this much. Are you going to willing to match it or go higher? It's that bidding war they got going on.
I think we're a transition. We're in a totally different place now, Anthony. Look at us under Triple H, under Vince. People wanted to get out. They were unhappy with their booking. They were unhappy wearing helmets, doing all this other nonsense that they were doing before. Whereas now, obviously, under Triple H, it seems cool. He's pushing the right people. Far less greater talents can be available for AEW to sign. I don't see AEW going out and getting the top tier talent that WWE have got. I think people will re-sign contracts because they're being pushed right, which the only people you're going to probably get in AEW is they're going to have to go to Impact Wrestling, take people like that. But trying to get people out of WWE that are not jobbers and all this lot is going to be a really hard task. I don't know if we're going to get them jumps like we did when AEW first started, if that makes sense, like a John Moxley jumping ship. I just don't see how that's going to happen because AEW have lost that hype. It's going to take a massive amount of work for AEW now to get back to where they were. Like people thinking this is a great promotion, somewhere else to wrestle. I'm going to go here. I can do what I want. It's not PG. It's an indie promotion. I can push the ideas I want. I'll get pushed to the title. I won't have to job. I won't have to do this. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of gone really a little bit.
Yeah, but the wild card of all this was Triple H taking over, and that just kind of changed the perception of going to WWE because it all depends now on the booking going forward and how it continues to evolve in terms of the booking and the creative in WWE going forward. And if it starts to change into a more desirable location for certain individuals to go over there, then I think it's really gonna have AEW on their heels.
They only go to AEW for the only reason why they'll go to AEW now is for money. It's not for the prestige of a world title or anything like that. And money does motivate certain people. For other people, it's not the be and end all of everything. A lot of these people were wrestling fans, grew up as wrestling fans, and just taking that step too far, so to speak. But I'd much rather go to WWE than AEW at the moment, if I'm being honest. The change in mood since Triple H has been there, it's almost night and day. It's incredible.
Yeah, but this might be a good thing for AEW because their roster is extremely bloated and inflated. This could be a way for them to kind of cut the fat off of it, for lack of a better term, and kind of just maybe reassess the roster and start booking individuals better, because they have so many people that get lost. And Tony Khan talked about this before, and he talked about the downfall of WCW, and he's doing the same exact thing. I mean, same exact setup where he feels like it's bloated, too many guys, you don't have enough TV for everybody. He's down that same rabbit hole. Silk in the chat. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, no, go ahead.
All I was going to say is this isn't year one, isn't this? Isn't year one where we've got to go out and build a company. We need to sign anybody that's a free agent, anybody that potentially's got talent. Yes. We're now 3 years on to this project. You know what I mean? This is the point now where you can decide who you want to keep, who you want to get rid of a little bit, besides the length of contracts and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a good housekeeping kind of thing for AEW going forward. Silk is in the chat. He says, I feel with AEW, they can build certain wrestlers to a point, then they just fall flat like Hangman and Wardlow when they win the respective titles. That's a good shout by Silk right there.
I agree. I think he's made some fantastic points. Wardlow especially. Like,
yes,
he beat MGF, one of the only guys on the whole roster to beat MGF, and he's now barely on any pay-per-view doing anything. But yeah, I agree with it. It's a shame, really. I think Tony Khan needs to have that attention to detail with everybody. Like, when he first started, he seemed to have a really good plan of where he was going and stuff. But injuries and people kicking up, backstage fights, this isn't a normal time for AEW. So hopefully when it gets some sort of normality and he gets rid of the people that are causing problems, or at least has somebody in control of that, maybe we'll see AEW back to what it was. Because I remember the feeling of All In last year, or out last year even, where they had Danielson and they had obviously Adam Cole debut, how high and how excited everyone was. He can still do stuff like that. He just needs to be given time, and he needs to be pushing the right people. Really, they're not going to cause problems.
The problem is AEW's ran into a lot of roadblocks and hasn't been able to kind of course correct. But they've also had an issue with finality. So when they come to a storyline, the finality of the storyline, it's been the second chapter of the storyline of what happens next. They've had issues with building upon the success they had in the original storyline. So, for example, Hangman Adam Page, the storyline was and the build was so well done that after the climax, you're kind of just like, okay, what's next? But they didn't have really like a plan in place for what was next to get the character to continue to be a top guy, highly watched, brought eyeballs to the product. So that's the issue. They have that issue with Wardlow where it's just kind of like, oh, we got him there. Okay, but what do we do after this? Like the sequel, what do you do after? They don't really have a plan in place for what happens afterwards.
They don't. They just make up as they go on besides the world title,
yes.
probably.
Dan says, feel AEW was so concerned with getting Punk back as world champion, they lost all focus of the other stories on the show, hence where we're at now.
Probably. The thing is, obviously, the big goal, as I said earlier, was to have Punk to have this long reign and Punk be sort of the main focal point of the show. And when you're having to change titles and stuff like that, this interim title thing has been really, really not good. And I think the continuing having to have interim titles really weakens your world title. But on a positive, at least the world title was defended regularly, unlike WWE.
That is true, unlike WWE. Steve, with all these wrestlers away right now, it's a great opportunity to attempt to build and make new stars. All those pillars that we had in AEW a year ago have faded into the background, minus MJF.
I think so. I think it's a great point by Steve. I think he makes some fantastic points. Obviously, when Tony Khan built the company, he had the pillars of who he wanted to build the company around. But as you said, more and more people have been released by WWE, and they've then got them people, and it's almost like a shiny new toy. Let's add this person, where they slot in. I think Tony Khan, this is a big one out there. Ever since Tony Khan bought Ring of Honor, he's dropped the ball slightly. It's been far too much. His workload's far too much. And I think the minute that he bought Ring of Honor and the minute that Cody Rhodes jumps to WWE, that was a massive change a little bit. Cody Rhodes offered a lot of guidance, a lot of wisdom. His dad obviously was a fantastic, his dad obviously was incredible in WWE with promos, all the other stuff, running a company, stuff like that. For me, I think it's just too much for Tony Khan. Tony Khan stretched too far. He's also having to run Fulham Football Club on the sidelines as well. It's just how many hours are there in a day? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then with football season starting out too, he's got the Jaguars, so there's a lot going on here with him in terms of what he's got. Tino's in the chat. Tino, what's up, brother? Thank you for joining us, man. All right, let's jump to the next topic before we continue on with the stuff in the chat. And it's Braun Strowman shows up and he's already poorly booked.
Yeah, okay, so should we break it down? So obviously Monday night he came in and destroyed the tag team division.
Yes, which isn't a good look. I mean, it isn't a good thing to him to do that. Yeah.
Let's go with the pros. The pros were, it was great to see him back. Like he looked like he lost a lot of weight. He looked really, really good and all this lot. I think interesting placement. For me, I think when you're coming in, you're showing the tag team division. Any other time would have been fun, but the fact the tag team division is struggling, you've got nobody that could beat the Usos. Crucial, you had the Street Profits in there, which we'll get into probably in the next segment. So Street Profits in there as well. But for me, I just think it's a really stupid placement. I don't get why he's coming in there. why couldn't you take out the 24/7 division, which you're not using
Yes,
anymore, rather than take
make
out the
more
only
sense.
tag teams you've got? If that makes sense. I felt it was really, really not good. And then you look at him on SmackDown this week. He's there with the Alpha Academy. Where are we going with this? This is just a total waste of time. Is Braun going to team with Nicholas or something? As Silk said in our podcast this week, it's just a total utter waste of time, really. Braun, it's great to see him back, but for the money they're paying him, if you want him to be a guy that challenges Roman Reigns in a few months or something, what are you doing? You know what I mean? It just makes no sense to me. It's almost like something Vince would do.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? There's no long-term plan.
So we could see Strowman just come and do like his massive feats of strength and that old thing we've seen before, and it's a very Vince thing.
He slipped up as well. I know that can't be helped.
Yes,
he slipped as well.
Yeah, they willfully edit that stuff out in the promo packages they've done for his return. So
at least he did that.
But yeah, he shouldn't be destroying the tag team division. He's already done that once when he won the titles with Nicholas at WrestleMania. Why do it again? I don't know. It's like they don't know what to do with Strowman other than it's so easy to book him because he's so big and so huge that we could just book him the same way over and over again. It's easy. So that's what we're getting. There's no substance to him coming back. No reason for him coming back. Like for him to come back, there's no reason behind it. It feels random. He's back. Okay, he's beating up guys like he did before. Hasn't lost a step. He looks great, but there's no meat on the bone, no substance to it.
I think the thing with it as well, it's just the time and the people he's taken out. Like you got obviously said the Street Profits there, as we said. This week on SmackDown, they're trying to go against the Usos. They're already been destroyed by the Usos every pay-per-view. They've been destroyed by Braun now. Why do we care if they're making the save? You know what I mean? It's just the placement. You've really got to pick who Braun takes out, and putting him in a tag team feud. Yes, you want him to be over to be probably credible. It would have been far more credible for you to attack the Bloodline. It would look far better, and it would have made that impact, really. Yes, you don't make the Bloodline look cheap, but it'll make Braun look $1 million. And Bloodline getting attacked doesn't really do the damage it does to the tag team titles.
That's a really good That's a really good shout you brought out. Like he beats up Street Profits, and Street Profits come out to help at the main event. Between Solo and Drew McIntyre, so they already hurt them by association. It's the problem. It's like it's in real life, it makes sense that he's beating up all these guys because he's huge. But in wrestling terms, it hurts all the guys that he's beat up, both physically and on terms of how everybody's presented. It's not the right thing to do when it comes to bringing somebody back. And obviously, it's just tough. He's huge. It's complacency. Like, oh, he's huge. So the fact of where we're going to book him is he destroys everybody.
I'm just surprised. Obviously, bringing back as babyface. I really thought they would bring him back in with like a Lashley spot against Lashley. I thought they'd bring him back on Monday night, ripping the door of the cage off, in all honesty, instead of that. Maybe this whole thing with cars being flipped over, all that, well, perhaps that's easy to pin it on him. But we've got a pay-per-view coming up sort of in next month now. Him attacking the tag division. Where's it going? You know what I mean? Is he going to be in the tag team titles? You know what I mean? I think it just made no sense to me, in all honesty. It's a real shame. Like I thought like for Triple H just was one of the times he's dropped the ball, unfortunately, like he did last weekend with Drew. It's consistently dropping the ball on certain stuff. I don't know if it's not going to be perfect. I don't know if it's going to be what I like, but when you're paying that kind of money for somebody like a Braun Strowman, you're bringing him on this massive money. If you want him to be somebody who legitimately can challenge Roman Reigns at some point, this isn't the way to do it.
It isn't. It definitely isn't. Dan in the chat, if you're a well-established WWE wrestler, it wouldn't make any sense for anyone to go to AEW. Like they're better off going on the indies or just doing one-off matches in AEW so they aren't AEW trapped. That's the thing where it's like somebody shows up and then like, oh, they put out the post, this guy's all elite or this girl's all elite, but then you don't see him for a while. Are they really signed or what's the story with that? I mean...
I guess you're just kind of hoping. The thing is, if you are establishing WWE, the only reason where you're going is because you're either the money, the first thing, or you're not happy with your position. If you think you should be a world title when you're challenging the Continental title, then maybe. But you're not going to get a look in there, particularly with MGF. Like if MGF gets the belt, he would be one that could take the belt for ages until he leaves potentially.
Yeah, big time. Martin says, didn't AEW back in 2019, 2020 feel like WWE shows right now? The AEW shows at the time feel barely breathable with the viewers at home and also the crowds live.
Yeah, I guess so. The thing with AEW is they're fantastic matches. It's just the storylines and all the other stuff going on around it that make it a bit more not the best, to be fair, but give them their due. Let's just see what they do with this. I still enjoy watching AEW. They still do some fantastic in-ring work. It's just the title belts. I think adding all these title belts continually, it's just too many belts, as you said on one of our episodes. And it just the problem is when you've got so many title belts, all of them become devalued rather than focusing on just one or two where you're making them sort of the focal point in the show.
not only do they have too many titles in AEW, but they also have too many titles showing up from other promotions on there. Like you saw Hikaru Shida with her random, title that she has from another company. Just why? What's the purpose of showing them with other titles, even though you have 50 titles of your own? It's too many. It's like you're worn out from all the titles that you see, even if they're
Yeah, I
part
agree
of
with you.
AEW or not. Yeah, that makes sense. Martin with an interesting shout here. Should Zach Clayton become AEW World Champion by 2023?
Why not? Nothing to lose.
Who's gonna love this one? Eric from West Coast Podcast. He's gonna love this big Zach Clayton guy, big Slim J fan. So he's gonna love that one right there. Eric says Strowman is the same problem AEW has with Wardlow, sometimes too big and strong for their own good. It's lazy booking because you see a guy who's huge, he looks great, he's super strong. It's just like, okay, let's have him beat up everybody because he's huge. Because it makes sense in terms of the optics of a regular person seeing that. Yeah, the size is obviously gonna destroy everybody who's gonna beat him. But in wrestling, it hurts everybody else if you're not, like you said, have him destroy the 24/7 division because it's already kind of gone anyways. Just have him blow through everybody there.
Yeah, I agree. The only benefit, I'll put Pro out there for Braun Strowman. The only benefit is he's far better than Omos and Commander Aziz as a big person. That's the only kind of benefit that I can say to him. But it's just one of them things where out of all the people you could bring back, I'd much rather saw Bray Wyatt first than Braun. But placement's everything. It's week 1. Let's see where it goes next week. That's for sure.
Yeah, let's read some of these comments before we get to the next topic. Destroying tag team division. I just don't understand why maybe Vince snuck him in. Could be Vince shouting at us. Put him in there. Put him in there. So talking of SmackDown this week, I had this idea. How would you guys feel about Montez Ford being the swerve of Hit Row? So him leaving Angelo Dawkins and joining Hit Row as their leader because they don't really have a leader because Swerve Scott's not there anymore. What do you think about that, John?
I like that. Hit Row need help though. They've not been back a lot long already, and I feel that I'm suffering every time I see them. I feel like they're in a spot really where they've not been a good hire. To be fair, like there's no real plus to them now. Swerve's gone to me, and I think the thing with it is, yes, they can rap, they can do all this stuff. This is where you need a 24/7 title or a hardcore title, to be fair, because they'd fit there. But let's see where they go. I'm surprised that Triple H brought them back, in all honesty. For me, it must have been for a cheap pop, and I could see them being jobbers like pretty soon, really. Permanently.
It could, because the problem when you have a faction or a group that doesn't have a single star out of it, that's the problem you run into. You don't have singles out of it, yeah.
Compared to the Bloodline, and that's sort of they're almost like a sort of a thrift store version of the Bloodline, but the Bloodline would be better on every other account. Bloodline could lose 3 members and still be better than this Hit Row team, but I'm just not impressed with them. To me personally, they're not for me. They don't really work. They're a bit like a cheap version of the Acclaimed. At least the Acclaimed can rap and they're credible and they're over. You know what I mean?
That is true. Yeah, that is true. Tino says he should face Gunther, possibly Extreme Rules, talking about Braun Strowman. Martin says Braun Strowman is lost right now. He could have gone after Lashley. They have history from back last year. Would make more sense.
The reason why they didn't do that is because they don't want Lashley to be pinned, and Braun obviously has to look strong in his first match. So that's probably why they didn't do that. Let's just see where he goes. Like, I just think they probably won't even put on the pay-per-view after all this, to be honest.
We'll see. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be on the pay-per-view either. Tino says, but please, can every match have a stipulation at the show? Yes, Extreme Rules has had matches recently that aren't stipulation matches. They've just been regular, which is stupid. Why call them the pay-per-view Extreme Rules if not every match is going to be some type of stipulation match?
I agree. It should be a place to settle feuds. Prime example for Extreme Rules, Riddle versus Rollins. That's on. I think that'll happen. And this is the perfect type of match and feud to happen under Extreme Rules.
Yes. Martin Tino's having a fun time with Zach Clayton. Thinking that funny. Mark Carrillo, AEW should bring the AEW Dark Elevation World Champion, and Zach Clayton should be the first ever. There you go. Another title they can bring in, and be Dark Elevation Champion, only defended in Dark Elevation, like the All Atlantic title was only defended in anywhere other than the United States for the most part. Silk, the only credible title I feel at the moment in AEW is the TBS title with Jade Cargill. She's the mainstay. Yeah, she's holding it down over there. Eric, it does not help Strowman that every time he speaks, he sounded like a complete dumbass, or was it me that just noticed this? I mean, yeah, I guess.
He's never been a good talker, to be fair. Like, if you look at that feud with Shane McMahon last year, like, he's never been the best talker. But if he goes back to the original big man, look, could have won the world title, fine. But for me, less on the mic and less sort of flipping stuff. If you're going to subject like 5 wrestlers that are going to lose overness because of Braun, you're going to have to be doing it for a reason. There has to be a payoff. But the problem is you haven't got an abundance of big men of quality. So I really don't know where he goes long term, in all honesty, at the moment.
It's tough because you kind of go on that whole ho-hum, I'm strong, I flip cars role. So that's the whole thing you kind of go down with him. So he doesn't have the mic skills to kind of change that perception of him. So you got to have him in like some good storylines. Next topic, Butch wrestling as Pete Dunne. So Butch is still Butch at the moment, but he's wearing the attire of Pete Dunne. So could we get a slow transition back to Pete Dunne from Butch?
Yeah, so on SmackDown this week, he's doing all the moveset of Pete Dunne, all the mannerisms and stuff like that. They are looking to do a turn to Pete Dunne, so I expect that to happen quite soon. But just great to see him back, really. This guy's fantastic. I really felt that six-man tag was probably one of the best matches of the week, like on actual TV this week. I think it's so good. And Pete Dunne back as Pete Dunne is something we can see. But yeah, look for that transition. He may not be called Pete Dunne straight away, but he's wrestling as Pete Dunne.
Yeah, we might start getting more of the entrance, the attire, the entrance attire, all that stuff. If he gets a belt, maybe he puts it in his mouth like he did before. All that stuff we could see, but it will be heavily applauded by everyone watching if he does eventually just revert completely back to Pete Dunne. But staying in the same vein as that group, Sheamus is one of the most over talent in WWE right now, especially post Clash at the Castle. Now, I've always said he's probably the most underappreciated individual in WWE for the past few years. The amount of time he's been there, the stuff he's done, quality stuff he's done, he's super extremely underappreciated. And maybe finally now people are starting to realize that, and he's one of the most over guys right now.
Yeah, I agree. Look at the crowd reaction he got, like in that match. Like for me, like absolutely incredible. He got such a reaction, obviously at the pay-per-view, and that's carried on. Like this week on SmackDown, he's the most over person on the show. I think one of the most over people on the show.
Yeah,
the crowd are really into him. Fantastic ability. And this Gunther versus Sheamus match, which you're probably going to get at the pay-per-view, it's incredible. This is almost like main event level matches, but for the Intercontinental title, the Intercontinental title's never felt so good in recent years for me. I think look for him to continue this push. If he carries on, this could be somebody potentially down the road that could get a shot against Roman Reigns.
We could see it. I mean, like I said, he's extremely underappreciated, undervalued by most people, and I think him, Sami Zayn as well, like two of the most over people other than like Roman Reigns right now in WWE and maybe Seth Rollins. But I mean, Sami Zayn is mega over, especially online. I mean, the honorary Aew stuff is great. The stuff he's doing, especially this past Friday on SmackDown with Solo Sikoa joining the Bloodline. But Sheamus, yes, especially post Clash of Castle. I mean, talking about the guys over. Eric says, thank God we were slowly getting the real Pete Dunne back. Yes, thank God we were finally getting that. Hopefully it happens sooner rather than later. Tino says, the presence of Pete Dunne just makes it feel so much better. I missed the bruiserweight. Yes, we all did. Pete Dunne, awesome talent, could do so well in WWE. It's just he was saddled with Butch and that whole gimmick, that Scrappy the dog gimmick he got. Hopefully, we were seeing it. It's slowly moving back to Pete Dunne. Martin says, who would have thought that Bobby Lashley and Sheamus would become the biggest baby faces behind Cody in 2022? What do you guys say about that, Jonesy?
It's crazy, like particularly Sheamus at the start of the year. We've always said he's a good talent, but to be a babyface, the fans behind him, and that sort of stable, the Bruising Brutes, they are basically heel stables to turn into a babyface. Just incredible. But obviously the feud with Gunther, it's elevated both of them. Both these two wrestlers are going to come out, and they could go to, if there wasn't such a Roman Reigns, for example, the world champion, if you just had a Drew McIntyre as world champion, either one of them two could potentially challenge at any point. It would work.
It would, definitely. Silk is an interesting one here. With the talk of Pete Dunne getting his name back, fingers crossed on that, he puts Drake and Gibson back together as the grizzled young veterans. Now, I did like that tag team. Awesome tag team. They're different now, right? Very different.
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to revert back? But I don't know, because who's the one that makes that decision to change the grizzled young veterans into what they are now?
Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels is the overall center of NXT. They needed Joe Gacy to have something different. Zach Gibson's always been a fantastic talker. This guy on a mic, like this gimmick he's wasted, but him as a talker on the mic, he could be phenomenal. Like if he's given that microphone, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. And like we'll see it, but right now that's a decision made by Shawn Michaels. So I think they're going to say that
Shawn Michaels, but unless Joe Gacy goes up to the main roster in some sort of supernatural faction or something like that. But let's see where this goes. This schism stable to me doesn't look like it's going the way it's going to grow. I think, if anything.
Yeah, I think it's going to kind of probably fall to the wayside. Maybe they'll go back eventually, but they're going to have to give it this time as this new group to see if it works out. Next topic, and we're talking all about Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns' next opponent is an obvious choice, and also, what do you got on his WrestleMania run and maybe a babyface turn for Roman Reigns?
Okay, so let's do this. This is quite a lot. So it's quite a big one. So Roman Reigns, obviously, his next match for title defending is going to be in Saudi Arabia. So November, Crown Jewel, that'll be his next title defense. Apparently, Dave Meltzer this week said it's not an obvious choice. He says he doesn't expect it to be Kevin Owens, doesn't expect it to be Karrion Kross. So it's not an obvious choice. There's three choices I think it could be. Should I do lightly, least lightly, and probably not at all? potentially.
Yeah, leave not as all for the last one.
For the last one. So the most likely one I think it'll be is probably a Braun Strowman. It's very easy to do. Braun, they're obviously trying to build up like subject and tag team titles. The least likely I think they'll do potentially is Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn I think could be out the bloodline by that point. It's an easy feud to do. And the last one for me, very unlikely, but it would be something that they may look to do. They are going back to Legends now, and this person is due back imminently, I believe. Again, is Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt is due back, and that is a match they can do. Clearly, the fact they're not going to build this, they're not going to put Roman out there with that without facing anybody that he's not going to lose to, if that makes sense. So if we're then going on to sort of his WrestleMania run, so the dream scenario is for Roman Reigns to face The Rock at WrestleMania. This is a Vince McMahon plan that Triple H is following. It's still going on. Look for Roman Reigns to keep the belt for a while. He's not losing the belt before WrestleMania. If it is The Rock at WrestleMania, he's retaining the belt. And so Roman as champion is going to be the way. No idea how this fits with two belts. I did hear a scenario that they did put out that apparently there is going to be something set up that some sort of ladder match where Roman Reigns is in there with a ladder. The two titles are on there. Both titles come off, but Roman has one and then the other person has the other. So that's the way to split the titles. But for me, I'm kind of disappointed. Roman Reigns is fantastic champion. Champion for 1,000. It's been 1,000 days since he's been pinned. For me, the minute he started doing his part-time schedule and the fact that he's not even defending stuff on pay-per-views now, and the world title is your most important thing on the whole TV show, I'm just done, mate, to be fair. Like he should have lost the belt. The more I think about it, I'm much more awake now. It was an audible last weekend. He should have lost the belt to Drew. I know we disagree on that, but it would have made so much more sense. I know you want to do a long-term plan. There was nothing stopping Roman getting the belt back if you still want to do Roman and Rock. You know what I mean? Roman and Rock don't need the title. Whereas for me, Roman with the title, yes, it's cool, it's great, but everyone, you're not building anyone else up and into him. When he does eventually drop the title, it's going to be sort of like probably unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, they don't need the title for Rock Reigns because it becomes a foregone conclusion at that point as to who's going to win, because The Rock's not going to win the title. If he does, he's probably going to get booed out of the stadium. But yeah, we disagree on the Clash of the Castle thing. Like I said, the states, they run more in the states, so it's a bit different with the reaction that Drew McIntyre gets compared to Roman Reigns. I don't think it would have flew as well
in the person. Bear in mind, I was there in person.
Like, you were there in person,
and stuff. Like if you obviously with that, the thing I get any other place in America, yes, probably Roman should be beating Drew, but you don't often get a crowd that's fired up, that ready. It would have been like a Daniel Bryan getting the belt. It would have been like Kofi Kingston at WrestleMania getting the belt. It would have been absolutely huge. And but carry on. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No. You're right. You are right, because that's that outlying. That's like the exception to the rule there, where you're like in a different country, the guy who's home guy is super over. It's like one of those calls. Like do you think you got to think about it, is like, do we get the big pop here? Have everybody be super happy? Have a massive happy ending? It's just where do you go from there afterwards? May have been a better thing because you would see the title more on TV, because if it would have been on a guy who's there all the time, unlike Roman, who's currently doing part-time now, it's a tough one. But as you were saying, rattling off the likely, unlikely, and least likely opponents, this was funny. Silk in the chat say it's Goldberg, right?
Oh, they've done that match, though, haven't they? Goldberg, did they do Goldberg and Roman already?
Yeah,
they were going to do it, weren't they? And then
supposed to happen, and
then it got cancelled at WrestleMania, and then they went to Braun and Goldberg. But I hope it's not Goldberg. Like, it's just, come on, behave. Like, I know the Goldberg beat the Fiend at Saudi, but no, let's be fair. Whoever it is, to be fair, isn't beating Roman. Roman's obviously going to win.
It's a three-year reign. 3-year reign was what they're shooting for.
We're probably going to get that. The long-term plan is a multi-year champion, and going towards apparently the long-term plan they want is Roman Reigns to be a babyface. How are you going to get to that? I have no idea, unless he's going to have the bloodline turn on him. And the trouble is, going back to what you said earlier, Anthony, about the whole crowd reaction, I guarantee, put my money out there now, they won't get, wherever they do swap this title belt, they won't get the reaction they would have got that they could have had in the UK last Saturday.
That is true.
You can give it to Cody, you can give it to The Rock, give it to whoever. You won't get that reaction of Roman.
I think the only way you can get something at least somewhat close to it, I don't think you could ever replicate that reaction that would have gotten if Drew would have won, because it was the hometown, and you guys were so happy for having an event, a massive event in such a long time, right, from WWE. So that played a factor into it as well. It may just have to be at WrestleMania. Like, that's the only place you could probably take the title off him, and it has to be a guy who won the Rumble, maybe somebody super over, maybe a Cody, something like that. Seth, if he turns face, or if Roman's a face and Seth's still the heel. I think that's the only way. It has to be at a WrestleMania with a guy who's a fan favorite, but the place has to be WrestleMania. For this guy to lose his belt, it cannot be on a random pay-per-view. It cannot be on any of the other big four other than WrestleMania, I think.
I agree with you. I think the only other way you're going to get the reaction, if I was booking, say we're in this situation, I've got to book somebody to beat Roman Reigns and get that reaction or close to, is Kevin Owens at home. Kevin Owens in Canada is maybe the one you'll get it if it's a super show in a stadium, stuff like that. Rock and Roman, if Rock does beat Roman and takes this 200-day run or whatever, 1,000 days without pinfall, I'm not going to be happy. I'm going to be pissed off because I think ultimately The Rock is giving nothing back to wrestling.
No,
He's going to be there for the cameo. It's going to make the rest of the roster that's been there all year round look like total idiots. The amount of people that Roman Reigns has beat, he's beat everybody. And you know what I mean? He's not he's never even looked like losing the belt half the time.
Yeah, I think it would be universally hated if Rock came in at WrestleMania and beat him that day. I think cause not only have his recent movies been bad and people are starting to lose kind of like their interest in The Rock a little bit, but also the fact that he just hasn't, like you said, hasn't given anything to wrestling in such a long time that why come in out of nowhere and beat the guy who's been a champion for 2.5, going on 3 years? It just wouldn't make any sense.
If I say I was Triple H and I could do it, what I'd love to do is I'd love to do an injury angle, get Roman Reigns injured for a while. He drops the belt by injury. I know you're taking away that whole legacy all this lot. I would love to see 2 separate belts. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens both winning the belt at WrestleMania. For me, that would be a dream scenario. I think the fans would be happy with that. And honestly, you can still do Roman and the Rock. Doesn't need a world title, does it?
No, that match doesn't need it. Because like I said, it adds a foregone conclusion to the match. Like, if he's going in as champ, The Rock's not beating him for that title. They're not that dumb to pull the trigger on that. Because he's not going to stick around unless he's going to stop acting, which I don't think he will. Let's read off some of these comments before we get to the next topic. Tino says, would you guys be mad if he kept Butch but stayed in the presentation of Pete Dunne long term? Yeah, I would be. Because the name Butch
sucks.
It's
a stupid name.
Yeah, it's a stupid name, yeah.
It should be the guy that from NXT, the Pete Dunne from NXT, really, in all honesty, with under Pete Dunne, basically, is the name.
Exactly, yeah. The name Butch is terrible. Dan goes on to say, Sheamus deserves a title shot at Roman, especially how good he's been. Also, that's a good faction for the Bloodline to feud with the Brawling Brutes.
It could be good, definitely. I thought they would have backed Drew up, in all honesty. I thought that was the route they would have gone down going into this match.
Yeah, exactly. I think he would have, yeah. Martin says, do you agree that currently it's the best Sheamus run in WWE?
I think it's helped by Gunther. He's definitely on a very, very good run. He's done some credible work. He was much more. He looked much more impressive, I'd say, when he first joined. Like when he got the world title quite quickly, he looked a lot more momentum. But his in-ring work is fantastic. This is his best run in-ring.
Eric says, LOL, no point Roman wrestling a Survivor Series this year. He holds both titles unless he separate them. It doesn't make much sense.
Himself.
Silk, I can see Seth taking the WWE title, so we get Cody versus Seth for the WWE Championship.
It's one to do, but then the thing is, it's how they get the belt off Roman. If they're going to have 2 titles, maybe, but I don't know. Unless Roman loses it without getting pinned somehow. I don't know how they do that, really.
It's going to be a tough one to book. It's real tough to book. Right now, Roman Reigns is tough to book. Martin, Jonesy was right. What was the point of having Drew going to Raw and SmackDown every week before Clash to set up challengers already, but then loses the championship match?
I agree with it. The thing is, this is another thing I'm going to mention as well about SmackDown. So Drew this week on SmackDown's raging. He's absolutely angry and stuff. As the Clash of the Championship goes off, he's singing, dancing like he's going into American Idol or something. You know what I mean? I know they're meant to cut that on the feed, but consistency, you know what I mean? Drew, to be fair, it's taken him a long time to get back to that. And him taking that for the Bloodline on his own and then not to get the belt, it just looked pathetic, really. But it was clever on WWE's part to give Solo. I think Solo's debut this week was really, really impressive. I love the finish of SmackDown. That was quite clever with Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross versus Drew McIntyre. That's an interesting feud. And neither one can afford a loss, I think. So good luck with who wins that one.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough one unless you do like a schmazzy finish where it's like maybe nobody wins the match. Martin says they haven't done Ryback versus Roman. That is true. No, he's right. I mean, he's right. He's right about that. They haven't done that match.
Not yet. It'll lose.
Tino says Cody should beat Roman.
That's the hype.
Tino says Martin said Ryback. Oh no, is he putting stuff into the air there that Ryback might be coming back?
No, mate. Yeah, I can't see it. Definitely not.
Nubin Co says Cody Rhodes is definitely going to beat Roman Reigns. Martin says, with almost all babyface contenders falling short to Roman Reigns, it's almost leading towards an obvious choice, right?
Maybe. I'm going to go back to a comment from Noob & Co. Cody Rhodes to beat Roman Reigns, definitely. With that one, for example, where does it happen? Like, if WrestleMania, unless you're going to have Roman Reigns doing 2 different matches at WrestleMania, perhaps night 1 is the Rock and Roman, and then you do night 2, Roman defending the belt, maybe. But Cody Rhodes could be the one. But if it's not a WrestleMania, Cody's probably win the Rumble. Where does he get the world title match? That's the thing with it. Like, I think Cody's your last hope, really. Either Kevin Owens or Cody Rhodes at the moment are your last hopes, unless somebody within the bloodline or somebody internally, Austin Theory cashes in or something like that. I really can't see where Roman's going to drop the belt. And the fact that they've said today, potentially, a lot of places said today that he's going to have the belt for a while. It's a long time to April for him having the belt and not defending it every month for me.
It definitely is. It's going to be a tough situation. I mean, Cody seems like the likeliest of all, but Eric says, Silk, why would Rollins, beat a threat to Cody more than Roman? Cody already beat Rollins 3 times and with a torn pec.
Don't forget that, though.
That's an issue. Yeah, that's an issue. He beat him 3 times already. For you to go run back and beat for the title, I don't know how much.
They'll forget that, though. That's the thing. They'll forget that and they'll pretend it didn't happen. And the thing with it is what they'll do if they do a Roman Reigns or Seth Rollins feud, they'll say that Seth is the only one to get a victory over Roman Reigns, even though it was like a DQ or something. That's the route they'll go down, which for me, Seth Rollins could be fine. But I think it's difficult. The problem with Roman Reigns is he's one of a kind, and you can't, the longer he has this belt, it's impressive, it's amazing, but you get to the point now where whoever beats him is never going to be good enough.
Exactly. That's the problem. Yeah. Silk says fatal 5-way championship scramble where Roman doesn't get pinned. That's probably like the easiest way to get it off of him, I think. Like something like that. Yeah.
They had the chance to do a triple threat at WrestleMania, didn't they? With Edge and Daniel Bryan. Obviously, Daniel Bryan wasn't going to sign. They didn't want to give it to Edge. Pick your people, really, I guess. That's the thing.
It's got to be like a multi-man match where he doesn't get pinned. But well, let's get to the last topic. And it's my favorite topic every single week. My favorite topic. It's the retro topic of the week. And today's retro topic for this week, episode 16 of the Rasslin Report. If there was no Montreal Screwjob, would that equal no Attitude Era? Because you got to remember, coming out of the Screwjob that we all know about, we all know the details about the Screwjob. We've heard it a million times. This created Vince McMahon, the character, the boss, the evil boss that would eventually feud with Stone Cold Steve Austin for all those years and give us some of the greatest television we've ever seen in professional wrestling history. If the Montreal Screwjob never happened, would have we gotten Mr. McMahon, the character, the heel, and everything that subsequently happened afterwards?
I think we would have. The Attitude Era, let's be fair, was pushed by Vince Russo. It wasn't the whole Montreal Screwjob. Vince Russo went into a room. Vince McMahon pointed at the Raw magazine, slammed it on the desk, supposedly. I think it would have happened. It may not have happened with the Vince McMahon character, but they had to try something new. They were getting absolutely pulverized by WCW in the ratings. Vince McMahon was really struggling with money and stuff like that. We may have got it, but it may not have been as pivotal with Austin and McMahon, which ultimately Austin really saved the company, I think. In all honesty,
he definitely did. I don't think he would have gotten, because, like I said, this basically was the creation, the genesis of Vince McMahon, the heel boss character. Because before this, you didn't really have him doing much in terms of knowing he was the boss. Everybody knew he was the boss, but he was still doing commentary. It wasn't really like on TV that he was the boss. Sometimes you would get references to it, and sometimes you would see it. We saw when Bret Hart got upset with him when he was at ringside, pulled his shirt off and everything like that. They got into a little bit of a tug of war. But this was it. This was what created it. When he said Bret screwed Bret, that's the genesis of Mr. McMahon, the character, and what we got. Would the Attitude ever happen? Yeah, most likely. Maybe Bret wouldn't have been okay with it in terms of what he got pitched in terms of creative, because he didn't seem like the type who was down with that kind of style with everything that we got later on, the Attitude Era. And it was Russo. This was Russo's creation. All that Jerry Springer, Howard Stern type television is what we got. But it's just interesting to think, would have we gotten that McMahon character? Would that eventually have happened? Now, would have Austin been as big as he was if there was no McMahon because there was no Screwjob?
Probably not. But then Austin, that organic growth from winning the King of the Ring and that whole promo obviously came. Yes, maybe. But I think a lot of that is down to the Mike Tyson coming in. Mike Tyson was huge. It's almost like the one of the biggest people in the world coming into a promotion, giving them eyes on the product, stuff like that.
But would he still come in if there was no Mr. McMahon character?
He came in before Mr. McMahon, like, didn't he? Largely, wasn't it? Because if the timeline's right, it was
he was at the Royal Rumble the year.
Did he come in before?
No, he didn't. He came out because Survivor Series was in November, so that January
of course it was.
Was when he showed up at the Rumble. Yeah, we showed up at the Rumble. Yeah,
I think he would have come in anyway. I think Mike Tyson would have come in either way, but Austin may not have been as over as he was, but they helped each other, really. It's the necessary two evils, and WWE struck gold with that storyline. But you could have had Austin and Rock, potentially, that may have got you the same direction, potentially. That I think the Survivor Series Deadly Game tournament, potentially, the change in the Rock there, and that evolution to a heel, to be fair, obviously could be a good thing. But it's a vital part of it. I think Vince McMahon definitely was a vital part of that Attitude Era.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's quite the questions like, do you get him out of this? It's a tough call. It's like, because it's like, if that didn't happen, does history change? It could, because this was really the catalyst for everybody hating Vince McMahon,
Yeah,
right? And then he basically created a heel without the idea of creating a heel. He just created it like that night. It was like, oh, it's all on Vince. He got spit in his face. It was his call. He screwed Brett. He comes out and says Brett screwed Brett in an interview, on Monday Night Raw, and everybody just hated him at that point. So it's like one of those things, right? Like, if it didn't happen, does history change, or will it still have happened in the end? It's a tough call.
Never know. What about if Austin never would have gone WCW? Would have gone from WWE to WCW? That's an even more weird one to think about.
Yeah, that's a weird one. Yeah, or because if he never got fired, and he went to ECW and kind of had that resentment, would you have gotten the same person? Yeah, it's one of those things. That's why I always like retro topic of the week, because it's like always a what if kind of situation. If this didn't happen, will have all of this subsequent stuff still have happened? And it's a tough call. You never know.
No, you don't.
Because it's all in the moment, and it's all kind of like happenstance in the end. Let's read off this last comment in the chat before we end this week's episode of the Rasslin Report. Dan says, AJ Styles hasn't faced this version of Roman Reigns yet. That's a safe bet and guaranteed good match for Saudi. They could even use that feud to introduce the Elite against the Bloodline.
Sounds good. If only. AJ Styles, he's a fantastic wrestler, lost in WWE. I think for me, I'd be a massive fan of that. That could be incredible, but get behind AJ Styles and give him a push, I'd say. This guy could be up there. Him and Gunther could be an incredible match. Him and Sheamus could be an incredible match. Even him feuding with Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn could be incredible. They've dropped the ball on AJ Styles, sadly, recently.
Yes, the past few years for AJ Styles have been quite, bad. They haven't been good, but I have faith that they're prepping for something bigger with AJ Styles sooner rather than later. I'm not saying he's going to win the title, but I think he's going to be put back into a prominent role soon. He's too good to be denied. He's obviously just, to me, he's an absolute legend in professional wrestling, for the past 20 years, ever since his Impact days, his TNA days. I mean, just one of the best professional wrestlers for the last 20 years. So there's no way he can be denied. Everybody respects him. Everybody knows how good he is in the ring. I don't think you're going to see much more of this bad AJ Styles in the near future. Now, when you talk about introducing the Elite against the Bloodline, that'd be nuts, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Sadly not.
Yeah. All right. So that is the Rasslin Report for this week. We appreciate everybody that came in, all the wonderful chat. This is probably one of the biggest chats we've had since the return of the Rasslin Report. We appreciate everybody for tuning into this episode. Much love to all you guys. Hopefully next week we can get the same amount of interaction like we did this week and keep it going, keep the ball rolling on the Rasslin Report. We are working as well as putting the Rasslin Report, the audio version, on a Spotify or wherever you get your podcast at. So we're working on that as well. So stay tuned. If you can't watch us on YouTube or you want to watch us on the go, we're going to put it up as a podcast audio version soon. So this episode may be soon up there on Spotify if you haven't listened to it. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. Jonesy, any last words?
No, thank you for watching. It's been a great episode. Let's hope next week that there's as much to talk about. I'm sure there will be somehow or another.
Yeah, we got to see.
It gets more and more every week.
We got to see if next week's going to be as interesting as this past week in professional wrestling. But again, thank you everybody for joining us on the Rasslin Report. We'll catch you guys next time for the next episode of the Rasslin Report. Catch you guys later.